Good afternoon to you. 3:06 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, 4 o'clock, Steve Moore is here. We talked to him about today's hotter than Wall Street expected inflation numbers, meaning the economy is still in bad shape right now. Steve reacts to that. Ben Weingarten from Realtor Investigations will join us as Democrats are using your money to mobilize their voters. He'll explain. That's at 4:30. Then at 5 o'clock, Congressman Matt Rosendale joins us. We'll get the latest on this battle over just how much the government should be allowed to spy on you without a warrant. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. At this very late date, Joe Biden is now claiming, in what is quite obviously a scam, that he's going to give some border security the old college try. Well, I guess I can try to do something. Here's Joe Biden talking to Univision in the last 24 hours.
Have you made a final decision on taking executive order in terms of what you want to do at the border? That includes the power to shut down the border, as it was suggested.
Well, it suggested that. We're examining whether or not I have that power. I would have that power under the legislation when the border has over 500,000 people, 5,000 people a day trying to cross the border because you can't manage it, slow it up. There's no guarantee that I have that power all by myself without legislation. And some have suggested I should just go ahead and try it. And if I get shut down by the court, I get shut down by the court. But we're trying to work through that right now.
I like the fun game he's playing where it's not already federal law that the federal government's supposed to enforce our border. For more on this, Congressman Mark Green joins us now. He's the chair of the Homeland Security Committee, and he's on the phone. Hello, sir. Good to have you back with us.
Hey, Vince. Great to be on the show with you.
So you've got the president now claiming, you know what, maybe I'll have to take some executive action to secure the border. What do you make of that?
You know, this whole ruse is what I call it, is really just to help with the political battle that the president's in. He knows this is a losing issue. It's an 80-20 issue for Americans. And these talks are they're just that. To point back to legislation to say that legislation is required for him to take executive action on the border, shutting the border down, is deceptive because there is in code right now, under emergency conditions, under crisis conditions, the authority for him to do that. And just this morning, finally, Alejandro Mayorkas said it was a crisis. So they should act and act now.
Yeah, they should have been acting like this for a long time, obviously. On Alejandro Mayorkas, sir, there is we are still awaiting the infamous walk down the hallway of the articles of impeachment for Alejandro Mayorkas. My understanding is that an expectation that it was going to happen this week has been delayed. It instead will happen next week. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so we got some requests from the other side of the building to wait a week, and that's what we're going to do. I think we're bringing it down Tuesday now. That's the plan. The plan was to do it this afternoon at 5 p.m. It's all about the Senate's schedule as well. They have to be in session, and their calendar has to support it. So the plan is Tuesday afternoon, I believe.
Tuesday afternoon, the articles of impeachment will be walked down. Chuck Schumer, the expectation is that he is going to look to rapidly dismiss the impeachment trial and suggest that they don't even need a trial. We just need to dismiss these articles of impeachment. If he can do that, why couldn't Republicans do that in the first place with those Trump impeachments?
Yeah, they'd have to have the votes, and I think you might recall a few Republicans actually voted in support of those. So it's that was a huge failure on our party's side and on individuals in the Senate. So absolutely, what he's going to do, I think, is vote to table it as soon after I read it. So if not immediately, the next day.
Is there any sort of maneuvering available to Republicans in the Senate in order to get a trial actually underway?
I think that's perhaps why the Republicans called us and said, "Hey, can we buy some time here?" I think they're over there lobbying, a few of the Democrats to try to get this thing to halt the tabling motion. If that happens and they're able to pull that off, then we'll go probably to the committee level to hear this trial. I doubt they'll allow it for a cabinet secretary at the full Senate level. But we're prepared. The managers and the staff are prepared to execute a trial either in committee or in the full Senate.
Why would any Senate Democrats be willing to help Republicans with this?
Well, they got to go where this issue. If they vote against holding Mayorkas accountable, there's a vast number of people who typically vote Democrat out there in America going, this is unsustainable, this is crazy. And so that's why you're getting Biden yammering about, come on, please send me some legislation so I can get 5,000 a day in. They're doing that because they recognize it's a problem. There are Democrats out there. They don't want to have this trial play out on national television. But there are Democrats who might get hurt by just simply tabling Accountability America. So that's the hope anyway.
Interesting. So, yeah. What do you think the chances are that Alejandro Mayorkas feels any sense of shame about all of this? I mean, it's a pretty big deal. The United States House of Representatives delivering an impeachment for you. Do you get the impression that he cares?
I've heard his pushback on all this, and he vigorously defends himself. I doubt very seriously he feels any shame. He is the first sitting cabinet secretary to be impeached in the history of the country, and he'll have to wear that until whenever another one is done. But I don't think he feels shame at all. I think Mayorkas thinks he's done exactly what they intended to do.
Sure.
And so, no, I doubt very seriously there's any shame involved.
Right, yeah, and if there was any shame, he'd probably be working to actually secure the border to make it so that the problem was going away, but that's not what they're doing.
Yeah, and I don't know him personally. He's come to my office a couple of different times to talk about things, but I don't know him personally. I just know I've read his work when he was a prosecutor, federal prosecutor. I've read some of the cases that he brought, and then I've watched him in this job and in his previous jobs under Obama. This guy is a smooth operator. He's very smart. He is very slippery when he's under testimony. He doesn't answer questions. I don't think he feels one bit of remorse.
From your perch as the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, what are the threats, as you understand them right now, from the open border? We keep hearing that the FBI's Christopher Wray is raising all sorts of red flags, that we have deep national security threats now tunneled into the country.
Yeah, so Christopher Wray is probably worried about, of course, the terrorist stuff, and that is a huge threat because it's an exponential increase in the number that have been apprehended, which means in that known got-away number and then the unknown got-away number, because the border's essentially open, we have no idea of knowing who's in there. And if they're apprehending more, that means that the bad guys are hitting the sort of net at a much higher rate, which means they're in. Now, the other issue is the Chinese. I mean, you don't leave China with, who has this incredible social credit score. You don't get on an airplane, fly to Latin America, and walk up unless the Chinese Communist Party is aware of it. And what we've seen is unprecedented. Last year, 25,000 came in. So far this year, already well over 22,000. The highest year before that was 1,800. So China's doing something. And we know we've seen their quasi-tourists overwhelm military installations with photo cameras. They just bum rush them, and then they get apprehended. But we are aware that there are people in those groups just being released into the country that have former ties to the People's Liberation Army. So Mayorkas is putting the country's national security at dire risk. Now, you layer into that the fentanyl, you layer into that the crime nexus that has formed between the Mexican cartels, Latin American cartels, and our gangs. And there's some really substantial reporting in San Francisco, of all places, of how the Honduran cartels have connected with the gangs there and built this nexus of crime. And that's hurting Americans. It's killing Americans. And so it's bad all around. Human trafficking, I mean, the costs of an open border financially, not just the human cost, but the financial costs are something like $450 billion that we discovered from our investigation. So this is a wound that the country will feel for a very long time.
Those tens of thousands of Chinese men who keep pouring into the country, and China, by the way, refuses to take them back, which it makes the problem even worse for us. That did not come up. According to the White House readout of the phone call, the call that Joe Biden had with Xi Jinping, this was not discussed. How dangerous of an omission is that?
Well, I think it's ridiculous that the president wouldn't admit it. You know, the Chinese are not stupid. They've watched the Russian model in Ukraine where the little green men, as they called them, migrated into Ukraine, built homes in the Donbas region, and then voted to have Russia come in and take over. I'm not suggesting that that's what China's going to do. They're not invading the United States, but very clearly they want to destabilize the country, and they'd be very happy to do some disruption if we ever went to defend Taiwan. So if you're not smart enough to see this as a threat and bring it up to the Chinese premier, then you really don't belong in the office.
I think we had another congressman in the last few days refer to this as potentially sleeper cells of Chinese nationals here in the United States, referring to the exact thing that you said, which is this idea that should there be an invasion of Taiwan, that Chinese nationals here in the United States could serve to be destabilizing in some way. Is that your view?
Yeah, absolutely. So you think of the railheads. If we were going to move military forces to the Pacific, you got, let's say, an installation at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, or Fort Hood, Texas. They're going to have to do a railhead to the port to send their equipment over. Well, I mean, there's opportunities for sabotage. There's the power grid. There's, other infrastructure that would be at risk. And if I were an enemy, that's exactly what I would do to destabilize the country. So, again, the fact that they can't conceptualize this. Now, I think there are elements at DOD who have. I know for a fact they're starting to think about this, but the president and the Homeland Security Secretary don't seem to care.
So the Pentagon is contemplating the risks of our open border right now, but the White House doesn't care.
That's correct. There are contingency plans being, worked on at DOD.
It is that sign of how dangerous things are getting. Congressman Mark Green, you are the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, and we're grateful for your time today, sir. Thank you very much for stopping by.
Thanks, Vince. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Good to talk to you. So that's the kind of the top of the line issue here in terms of the Mayorkas stuff. Next Tuesday afternoon is what Congressman Green just said. That's what he expects. Next Tuesday afternoon is when those articles of impeachment are set to be marched over. Congressman Green indicating that they may be able to get some cooperation with Democrats at the very least to get this thing put into a committee trial rather than a full-blown Senate trial like you might see with, say, a president of the United States or in a more fair Senate. Quite honestly. Chuck Schumer wants to bury this thing. Mayorkas, no sense of shame, no effort to actually secure the border. Joe Biden's claims that he's going to use executive action. Well, we'll see if I can do it. It's in the law. You're supposed to do it. You've got to do it. And then that final warning from Congressman Green really stands out. The United States Department of Defense, again, under Joe Biden, but in that capacity, in the Pentagon, are working up plans based on their concern about the foreign threats that are pouring across our border and into our country right now. And now that is, by my count, that's the second congressman we've talked to, Republican congressman, in a week, perhaps with the benefit of intelligence. He didn't indicate one way or the other. He just knows what he knows, that there is deep concern about the role that Chinese nationals are playing, tens of thousands of them, pouring into our border and not leaving the United States, but instead staying here. Staying here. We'll keep asking questions, of course. 320.
Colleagues say you're going to offer a motion to dismiss the impeachment charges on Thursday. Are you at all concerned that if some Democrats in tough races vote for that, you can come back to haunt them on the campaign trail?
Look, we're going to try and resolve this issue as quickly as possible. Impeachment should never be used to settle policy disagreements.
It's a simple policy disagreement. Abandoning our entire border, tomato, tomato. It's like we just have a different strategy. What do you mean a different strategy? Is it a policy disagreement to abandon your country? No, that's impeachable. That's impeachable. In fact, Biden should be impeached for that, but Alejandro Mayorkas has been impeached, and you should conduct a trial in the Senate. You want to give the guy your votes? You want to say that he shouldn't be convicted? Fine. But do it all in public. Do it on television. Subject him to what you subjected Trump to. Do it. Live by the standard you've created. And this guy deserves it, unlike Trump. Congressman Eric Schmidt had this to say about the double standard yesterday.
Once you break the seal here, there will be no impeachment trials ever again. And Chuck Schumer likes to say history is watching. And I would remind him, history is indeed watching, Chuck Schumer.
Oh, yeah, history is watching. History is watching. Although history is written by the victors, is that what they say? How about be victorious here? Get this guy in front of an actual trial. Here's Marsha Blackburn.
We all know that
Senator.
Chuck Schumer is playing politics with this. He has members that are very likely going to lose their seats, and he does not want them to have to take a vote on this.
You know, if Republicans can get their act together enough to make these Democrats own these votes and all of a sudden voters hold them accountable, that's great. That'd be great. That would be a sign of a degree of competence that I didn't realize Republicans had. I hope you can, yeah, get these Democrats to go easy on Mayorkas and then just burn them down in this election, this upcoming election. Something good has to come of all of this chaos. Here's Senator Mike Lee, based Mike Lee.
Unlike the filibuster, which is rooted in tradition, in our rules, this one's rooted in the Constitution.
True.
Article 1 gives the House the sole power to impeach and gives the Senate the power and the duty to conduct trials of impeached officials.
Yeah, but did the Constitution contemplate Chuck Schumer? Did anybody ever think about Chuck Schumer's existence and how he was just going to ignore all that? So that the plan is to make this thing go away. It is to cover it up, to suffocate it, to make it disappear into that dark good night. Let's see. Hey, coming up, I've got we've got economy news for you. All of the forecasters were saying, oh, inflation's going to come in. It's going to be some inflation, but it's not going to be that much. Oh, yeah, no, they were wrong. It came in worse than they expected. The details on that ahead. Also, you see Michael Avenatti back on MSNBC. You probably didn't see it. He literally did a jailhouse interview. That's how desperate they are. They interviewed Michael Avenatti from jail. You know, Ronna McDaniel's not allowed to work there. She's too scandalous, but Michael Avenatti can do an on-air interview. What he actually said, though, hilarious. MSNBC hated it. The details ahead. Well, good afternoon to you. It is 3:35 here. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up on the show, we've got Steve Moore to join us to talk about the economy. Bad news. Bad news about the economy, unfortunately, again. He'll join us at 4 o'clock on that. Ben Weingarten is here at 4:30 from Real Clear Investigations as we examine how you, the American taxpayer, are paying for Democrats to get elected. I'm sorry, what? Ben Weingarten with the details. Oh, there's a rigging afoot. And Congressman Matt Rosendale joins us at 5 o'clock. We'll talk FISA and spying on American citizens without a warrant with him. And you can join us at 888-630-9625. 888-630-WMAL. CNBC headline today, the business press. Consumer prices rose 3.5% from a year ago in March, more than expected. More than expected. Now, they say more than expected. I do need to give a tip of the hat to our in-house economist, EJ Antoni. It was exactly what he expected. He's got a good track record. You should follow him on Twitter because every month before these economic numbers come out, I don't know if he has a perfect score, but it's pretty damn close. Yesterday, he tweeted, my final score is 3.5%. My final expectation, 3.5%. This morning, what was it? 3.5%. So he beats Wall Street every month. In case you're wondering about the quality of the economist we have here on the show, 3.5%. The Consumer Price Index, a key inflation gauge, rose 3.5% in March, faster than expected, pushing inflation higher and likely dashing hopes that the Federal Reserve will be able to cut interest rates anytime soon. The Consumer Price Index, a broad measure of goods and services costs across the economy, rose 0.4% for the month, putting the 12-month inflation rate at 3.5%. In other words, things aren't good. Inflation is bad, and the White House is lying. How many times have they lied to us? Oh, they're just getting better. It's not getting better. It's not getting better. Just ask anybody. And all of this, of course, is backward-looking. These numbers always reflect what you've already experienced. This is just an update for Washington. This is Washington finds out what the rest of the country's been experiencing. That's what the number is. So those are the details. And Steve Moore is going to be able to dive in a little deeper with us coming up at the top of the hour. But not bueno, not bueno. And in fact, over on Morning Joe today, an amazing clip. This was ahead of the release of this inflation number. They aired a video of a panel conducted with all sorts of undecided voters who were assessing the state of their lives right now, and they wanted to know, why are you undecided? Why at this late stage are you undecided? Why can't you just support Joe Biden? Listen to this. Sit back if you can and enjoy.
I want to show two more. The undecided voters were also asked how they think President Biden is doing on the economy. Take a listen.
I think he's been absolutely disastrous for the economy.
I agree.
Raise your hand if you think President Trump's policies on the economy would be better for your family personally. Raise your hand. All right, so that is everybody. President Biden argues that his economic...
There's a screen. I think it was 8 people on screen. They're all in their little, Brady Bunch boxes, and everybody puts their hands up. All of them. Every single one says, I'd be better under Trump than I am under Biden. The voice you hear, by the way, is Mark Halperin, who's had... Didn't he have a range of scandals? Anyway, he's back on MSNBC in some capacity. Here's the panel. The entire panel says we'd be better under Trump. This is on MSNBC's morning show.
You think President Trump's policies on the economy would be better for your family personally? Raise your hand. All right, so that is everybody.
Yeah, by the way, NBC fired Mark Halperin after a series of sexual harassment allegations. That's what I was thinking of.
President Biden argues that his economic record has been very good. He said President Trump's was not as good. What are you keying off of, Sean? Since you had the best smile in Virginia, the second best smile. What are you keying off of to say President Trump's economic policies would be better for you?
My past performance of my 401k. I know it was post 2020 and everything kind of flipped around, but you can't blame everything on 2020 for forever.
You can't just keep blaming 2020 forever, says this voter. I was better under Trump. My 401k. Look at the scoreboard. The guy just pointed at the scoreboard. He's like, look at the scoreboard. I was doing a lot better under that guy. And I love the stupid, the left is never literal. They rarely want to, convey or communicate in like a very specific literal way. But have you noticed the little stunt they've been pulling lately? Were you better off exactly 4 years ago? You seen this lately? Exactly 4 years ago. What was it? Oh, it was April 2020. We were in the midst of a full-blown government lockdown. Everything was chaos. Yeah, see, you weren't better 4 years ago. You're an idiot. This is the dumbest argument I've ever even started. I'm having it with myself, and you're an idiot. You're an idiot. Here's more from the undecided voters on MSNBC.
We have areas here in Pennsylvania where it's just at a standstill right now. Like things are supposed to be being built and the interest rates are just way too high for people to invest and start moving around. Moving around.
This is something we've talked about a lot on this program. One of the reasons people do think the economy is crappy is because A, it is, and B, they measure it in terms of their mobility. In addition to their household expenses, the ability to move somewhere else. Can I rent a new home? Can I buy a new home? Can I sell this one? They look at those things and they say, wow, the economy's not all that great right now. So being locked in place, handcuffed in place by Biden's economy is one factor in how Americans think about this.
And Virginia, just staying with you, because Pennsylvania is near and dear to Joe Biden's heart, are there Biden policies that you would blame for the problem? And if so, what are they?
The interest rate is so high right now, and I know they're trying to cut the inflation down, but if nobody is building, no businesses are really coming to Pennsylvania right now to keep us moving forward.
Even if you're trying to buy a house, because I'm trying to become a first-time home buyer, the prices are so high right now. It's just hard.
Is there anything Joe Biden could do or say between now and the time you vote that would make you feel?
I'm pretty certain as he started asking this question, you can see some of the respondents on screen already shaking their heads. There's not a chance in hell that he's going to win me back.
Differently about feeling that his policies would not be as good for your family on the economy? Or are you pretty much decided that Trump's policies would be better for the economy?
I mean, I feel like he doesn't even take accountability for what's going on in the economy. Not even accountability. He's in denial that it's happening.
The point is Biden needs...
I just want to remind you, this is on Morning Joe. This conversation, the Americans that they're preparing. That's the first time almost any of these words have ever been uttered on MSNBC in years. He doesn't take accountability. In fact, he's in denial about the state of the economy, she says, of Joe Biden. Morning Joe, up until now at least, has been Joe Biden's favorite morning show. He consults with the show. He talks to the hosts and all of its various guests and asks them how to run a country.
On the economy? Or have you pretty much decided that Trump's policies would be better for the economy?
I mean, I feel like he doesn't even take accountability for what's at all with what's going on in the economy. Not even accountability. Like, he's in denial that it's happening.
The point is Biden needs to hear the people, because when he's talking about the economy doing stellar, he's talking about the stock market. He's not looking at homelessness or joblessness. He's not, at AG's point, and thinking about how much it costs to go to the grocery store. And he's gaslighting literally everyone in the process.
and Omar, you voted for Joe Biden last time, right?
Yeah.
Some really important and hard insights for the Biden campaign to hear there. And hearing all that, you might think things are pretty bad for President Biden. That was not good.
You know, like, I love the shock in her assessment. Like, you hear that and you start to think, hey, maybe things are not that great. Yes, Mika, yes. Wake up, girl. Come on. We can do it. Get that engine fired up. You can do it. Think. No, things are not good. Every single person on an MSNBC panel, and they, by the way, they all genders, and I bet you somebody was, agender or something on the panel. They were everything. It was you look at it, it was a full-blown rainbow. They had every skin color possibly represented. All of them were like, yeah, I was better under Trump. Every hand shot up. Mark Halperin didn't know what to, he's like, oh, all of you? All of you? And I love the one where he thought he got that girl too. He got her with the gotcha. Go ahead, name a Biden policy that made your life worse. And she's like, well, the interest rates are terrible. The economy's awful. He had no good answer to that. Should I do the Ari Melber, Michael Avenatti story? This is pretty funny. Okay, I'm going to play. This is elsewhere on MSNBC. Let me move to a different story. This is so fun. It's so fun. They've just had a wild 24 hours. They're almost going to make me want to watch their network. This is crazy. So last night, they have a host called Ari Melber, and because the Alvin Bragg case against Donald Trump is set to take off, it's set to, the trial set to begin. This is the Stormy Daniels case. And remember, her old attorney was the creepy porn lawyer, Michael Avenatti. And Michael Avenatti is right now serving federal jail time for a number of fraudulent cases of fraud involving Nike and defrauding Stormy Daniels. He's serving extensive jail time. And over on MSNBC, Ari Melber said, what would be great? An exclusive interview with Michael Avenatti. Let's talk to him by phone from jail. Now, I don't know what that costs. I don't know how much money MSNBC is paying the prison. Do they pay for the phone call and cigarettes? Like, how does this work exactly? But Michael Avenatti on the phone from the federal penitentiary. And this is, I swear to you, when I first heard that this happened, I was laughing about it because I was like, this is just so ridiculous. And so many people were instantly pointing out, like, well, didn't they just say Ronna McDaniel can't work at their network because she's too offensive? Like, there's no way. No, but you could have a convicted fraudster, Michael Avenatti, come on the air via a jailhouse phone call. But wait until you hear what Avenatti had to say. It gets even better.
Since going to prison, as I mentioned, he has not spoken out in an interview about this case until now. So as this first ever trial of a former president begins next week, which was just reaffirmed, that's scheduled by an appeals court today, as Avenatti is a very newsworthy and legally relevant guest.
In media, we call this throat clearing, where you're like trying to explain, well, I'm having, it's very newsworthy, where you just get to the point. We got it. You don't have to explain it.
He is speaking out for the first time from prison on the now historic case he helped ignite. Joining us now by phone is Michael Avenatti, the former lawyer to Stormy Daniels, calling in from the Terminal Island Federal Prison in California. Michael, welcome.
Well, it's good to hear your voice, Ari.
By the way, every suck-up interview begins with the following question. How you holding up?
It's good to have you. We have a lot of news to get to. But first, how are you holding up?
Well, as Elton John once wrote, I'm still standing, Ari. I'm doing fine. And, to those who were hoping that perhaps the last few years would, ultimately destroy me, I've got some bad news for them. And, that is that it hasn't. I'm going to come out of this.
He's on top of the world right now.
Better and stronger than ever. And, every day I strive to make sure that this does not define me.
So Ari asks him, so how do you assess the strength of this case against Trump? What do you make of it? You think this is slam dunk, right?
Some of your lawyering led to the exposure of the evidence in this case. The New York trial now will be Donald Trump's first and possibly only trial this year. How do you assess the strength of the prosecution's case?
Well, I think what I'm about to say is going to surprise a lot of people, and that is that, I think this is the wrong case at the wrong time, Ari. I think that the case is in many ways stale at this juncture. You're talking about conduct that occurred some 8 years ago. I think the fact that it's occurring in state court in New York is a mistake. And I think that when you are going to
now, let me just say, as you're listening to all of this, first of all, your first reaction is like, wait, what? Michael Avenatti is saying this is a weak case. It's super old. He used the word stale to describe it. One of your first reactions, that's what my first reaction. Wait a sec. What is going on here? And then you get reminded, hold on. This guy brought the Julie Swetnick case. This is the guy who stood next to the ridiculous Julie Swetnick person and claimed that Brett Kavanaugh was involved in gang rape parties where he was handing out solo cups decades ago. It was so cartoonishly absurd. And here he is saying, well, this is an old case. It's stale. It's ridiculous. What is going on here? And he's a snake. Avenatti, no question, is a snake.
Essentially deprive tens of millions of Americans of their choice for the presidency of the United States, whether we agree with those folks or not.
Now he's saying that if you do this to Trump, you are just trying to interfere in the election.
Or regardless of what we may think of Donald Trump, I think it's a mistake to do it based on a case of this nature. I was hoping, frankly, that there would have been less hand-wringing, less bedwetting, and that the January 6th case would have been filed in a more timely manner. There's no excuse or reason as to why that case could not have been brought in 2021.
Yeah, so that same... Okay, he's like, this is hilarious. What a funhouse mirror we're living in. So Avenatti's pointing out, Jack Smith didn't bring his case until now. Why did Jack Smith wait until the election to bring the January 6th case? Why didn't they bring that case back in 2021 in the wake of January 6th? Why didn't they do that? What? They're interfering in the election, says Michael Avenatti. And then Ari Melber asks him this, have you been in touch with Alvin Bragg's office at all? And I wasn't surprised at first by Avenatti kind of dancing away from answering that question specifically. But he also dances away from answering a question Ari Melber didn't ask. Listen to that. This is kind of fun.
And Michael, have you been in touch with D.A. Bragg's office, and what specifically in evidence or logic do you think is wrong with this case?
Well, I'm going to decline to answer as to whether I've been in touch with, either the defense or the DA's office. But
I'm sorry, come again? You're going to decline to answer whether you've been in touch with, quote, either the defense or the DA's office. In other words, I'm not going to tell you whether I've been talking to Trump or Alvin Bragg. This is a lot of fun. I actually adore this. I think it's the best. And more on this in a moment. I can't help myself.
But let me say this in response to the second part of your question. I think the case has a lot of problems. Now, that does not, I don't mean to suggest that means that Trump will not be convicted, because I think he will be convicted because number one, he's a criminal defendant, and in our society, I don't believe the criminal defendants generally get a fair shake. In fact, I think that the percentage of convictions demonstrates that the deck is stacked decidedly against all criminal defendants.
Says the guy in jail.
Number one. Number two, I don't think that he can get a fair trial in New York. And to the people who claim that, in fact, he can get a fair trial in New York with a New York jury, I would ask them if they were to go to sleep tonight and wake up tomorrow and find out that the case had been moved to Mississippi or Alabama, would they still think that the trial was going to be fair?
We live in amazing times. You know what he's doing? This is my view, at least. I think he sees the writing on the wall. I think he knows Donald Trump's going to be elected. And he said, my only shot at a pardon is I got to quickly join the Trump camp here on these cases. The guy who became famous as a Trump antagonist, now throwing a Hail Mary. It could work. Who knows? Donald Trump tweeting in the last 24 hours, Truth Social posting after that interview. Thank you to Michael Avenatti for revealing the truth. We live in interesting times. It's 3:58.